this conference expansion, what it would mean for Arizona, and everything going forward. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we are going to talk conference expansion, all the latest rumors, innuendo, everything out there, you name it. We're going to talk about it. All right, first, let's make the case for the Pac-12 and for the Big 12, just so that we know exactly where everything is. Now, first thing that you could make the case for with the Pac-12 is you got better academics in the Pac-12. There's no doubt about it. And at the end of the day, these are academic institutions. These are presidents that are driven many times by academic decisions, as you know, which I totally get. And then after that, you've also got more high-profile cities. You know, if you look at the Big 12, there's a lot of Lubbocks, there's a lot of Ames, there's a lot of Stillwaters, places like that. Then you look at the Pac-12, there's a lot of Seattle's, Oregon, or Seattle's, Palo Alto's, places like that. You get the gist. And it's easier to stay together. So there's those two things that you got in play if you're a Pac-12 enthusiast. But if you're not a Pac-12 enthusiast, here's what the Big 12 has for you. They have the best basketball conference in the country. As we all know, Arizona is a basketball school. That's obviously fair to say. But after that, it's besides also being a basketball school, it is a school that likes being on national television. They don't like streaming. And that is something that I think that is important to keep in mind here when you're talking about the Pac-12 as well. The Big 12 has for the foreseeable future, you have conference stability. You have a great, you've got a great basketball franchise there. You've also got guys who you've got a media deal that was ensured to keep you in play for the foreseeable future. So there's both that. And on top of that, too, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with the whole streaming situation right here. Because, again, while streaming is the wave of the future, that future I don't believe is here yet. And so that's some of the thing. And, again, you've got a conference that people take seriously. I don't have a problem with Bill Walton, but I will say this, that when Bill Walton is on TV, it generally, I think, takes away a lot of times from the product on the court. Mainly, I think of that Arizona-UCLA premier matchup where Bill Walton ends up talking about, wait for it, Jamal Wilkes and him growing up for half the time. That doesn't happen on the Big 12. That doesn't happen on ESPN. That doesn't happen on other places. So what if Arizona were to stay in the Pac-12 without the LA schools? I would assume that at some point UCLA gets that bit, San Diego State gets an invite. But let's be honest here: is the conference really the conference without the LA schools in here? I say no. I don't see that being the case. Nor have I ever thought that was going to be the case. And I think that's one of the things that. You look at it and you're like, all right, well, this ain't the greatest situation in the world right here. Now, when it comes to some other spots about this, let's just talk about basketball at first. Pac-10, Pac-12 without the LA schools. You have Arizona, you have ASU, then you have Colorado, then you have Utah, then you have Washington, then you have Washington State, then you have Oregon and Oregon State. You get the gist right there. That's not very good basketball, and it's not basketball that I think that anybody should really be striving for. On the football front, that in the Big 12 is probably about equal. You've got in the Big 12, you got TCU, just coming off playing the national title game. You got Baylor, who has played in three has 3 different coaches over the past 15 years that has led them to top 10 finishes. Oklahoma State with Gundy. And then obviously in the Pac-12, you got Oregon, you got Utah, UCLA to a less, or not UCLA, but you've got those schools to a certain extent. But I don't know. I think that one's pretty much negligible. And then you look at that. You look at the corner. You also don't know exactly what's going to happen with the Pac-12, because if you're Oregon or you're Washington, why in the world would you be waiting? Why would the world would you sign anything with the Pac-10 when you know for a fact, the Pac-12, when you know for a fact that might not be able to hang on here, because let's be honest here, the Pac-12 is probably not going to stick around, and you've got Oregon and Washington waiting for that Big Ten offer when and if it comes. Which leads me to my next point. But first, let's talk about Built Bar. Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, I want to get bigger. I want to get stronger. Built Bar is here to help you. That is what Built Bar is here for. They want to help you get bigger and stronger. Check it out. Again, it's based out of Utah for a reason. You think of Utah football, you think of big, strong players, big, strong guys that are very, very good football players. Built Bar is probably helping them in that. You can go to GNC. You can go to basically wherever you get your stuff, and you will find a Built Bar there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about maybe the first school that could make that jump. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, there's been a lot of rumblings, even from national folks, about Colorado making that first move to the Big 12, which would make a lot of sense to me, because Deion Sanders wants to coach on ESPN. Deion Sanders is not looking to coach on Amazon Prime. Get it? Get it? That was funny. I'm going to keep using that. But in all seriousness, though, Colorado has no loyalty to the Pac-12. They bounced once out of conference. Why wouldn't they bounce again? I could totally see that being the case. This also needs to show you, too, that you shouldn't be relying on people like John Canzano to get your information. He's been saying a deal's right around the corner for the longest time. There was no deal that was right around the corner. It was being used by his sources, so you need to be careful on who you listen to when it comes to sources like that. But if Colorado leaves, then I think it makes the floodgates much easier to navigate them, because I think that, all right, well, Colorado's bouncing. The Pac-12 is certainly looking around and wondering what that next move is. Arizona, I think, would be much easier for them to be able to just go and head out at that point. And I could see that 100% happening. Again, not making a prediction, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Then, because again, there's going to be another conference blow up here. Everybody, around college athletics knows that there's going to be another conference blow up. And what you want to do is you want to be in the best position, the most stable position, so that you can basically be able to, when that does happen, head off into a greener pastures. And I think the Big 12 offers that right now. I don't really buy into the entire well, you know what? The academics will be brought down. We're going to talk about that in a second. We'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right. Now, as somebody with degrees from Arizona, I am proud that I went to the University of Arizona. I am. But I also don't go around assuming that I've got an Ivy League education to me. I don't believe Arizona is looked at as a solid school. It's not going to ever be looked at as a great academic school. Yes, there are certain departments. But if you're really associated with the Big 12 as opposed to the Pac-12, is any employer really going to say, well, you did graduate from the University of Arizona, but they are in the Big 12 conference? I don't believe that is ever that's ever a consideration right there, nor should it ever be a consideration. Again, proud to go to the U of A, but at the same time, I do understand where Arizona is in the grand scheme of things right there. So that's kind of those are kind of the cases. I think this month, I believe in April, you could see some clarity in the conference situation for Arizona going forward. I at least hope so. And as you know, I am in on the Big 12. All right, a little bit of a shorter pod today. We're going to be back with you tomorrow with a full spring game preview for Arizona football. As always, thanks for keeping